Good Tuesday night, and thank you very much for joining us tonight here on In Focus. The Department of Basic Education has raised concerns about the loss of learning time due to the coronavirus pandemic. According to Professor Martin Gustafsson, an estimated 80% of learning was lost in 2020 alone. This is a major concern as the foundation phase of schooling certainly has suffered in this time.
There are some measures that are really good for gauging how learners are progressing through the system. And one of the measures that we had from even before the pandemic was this words correct per minute, where children are reading the same passage grade after grade to see whether they are reading better, how many words correct do they get. And this is one measure that we can use on to gauge how learners are progressing, in this case, in literacy. And here we're drawing specifically from isiZulu data in Mpumalanga. And we saw that, before the pandemic, you had like 13 words correct per minute on a specific reading passage. That went up when the same children read this at the end of grade 3, it's up to 22 words. What happened with the pandemic? Well, it hardly went up. It went up to 24. Historical data suggests this should be 31. So in other words, reading progress for these particular learners kind of came to a halt in 2020. And if you look at those numbers, essentially it tells us that about 80% of what children should have learned in a year was lost. Of course, the same analysis can be applied to different subjects, different grades, and we can be certain that there are losses throughout the system. But what's particularly concerning are these losses at the foundation phase, because this is where fundamental skills are developed, which then serve learners for their entire schooling.
The unpredicted closure of schools and the unplanned disruptions to teaching and learning, they have resulted in the reversal of gains made in the last 20 years. And unfortunately, research indicates that lost school days lead to foregone learning. Our international experience and research confirm that learning losses experienced during pandemics lead to long-term adverse effects, including learners obtaining lower overall education value and ultimately lower lifetime earnings. Thankfully, we've now begun to measure COVID-19 related learning losses in a local context by comparing how much learning children learned in 2020 with how much they have learned in an average school year before that. These measures indicate, again, worrying results which you will receive later. There's also evidence that comes also from our independent partners, like National Income Dynamic Study, which confirm this very disturbing trend, which we'll be reporting to and that we want to speak to you about. And we believe that the first step towards addressing the crisis of lost learning, it is to prevent further disruptions to school time and prevent other learning losses. Experts keep on reminding us that children are less susceptible to COVID-19 infections. So our efforts to introduce comprehensive safety protocols in schools and the vaccination of teachers and support staff have created the possibility to keep schools open and sustain return to regular attendance.
Now, with pupils having lost 50% of learning time this year alone, how are provinces going to recover as end-of-year exams are fast approaching? This is also coupled with issues of high dropout rates, crumbling infrastructure, budget cuts, and widening inequality. Joining us to talk about this and more is Mpumalanga Education MEC Bonagele Majuba, Northwest Education Superintendent General Stefina Samaswe, and Musweo Makhoba from the Free State Education, his district management there, Vuisega Mbokela from the Eastern Cape Department of Education, and we'll be joined also by an education activist, Hendrik Mageneta, in a moment. You're a part of this conversation by sending us your comments and your WhatsApp questions, or you can tweet us. Now, if you would like to pose questions directly and comment live on air, do also send us a WhatsApp, and we will call you back, and of course we'll allow you to put your questions forward to the representatives. Good evening to you all, and thank you very much for your time and joining us tonight here on In Focus. Let's start with the Free State. I think the Free State, one of the highest pass rates, I suppose, of 2020. It was pretty clear that the 2021 year was going to be even more challenging with the great results you got in 2020. However, you were getting a grade 11 cohort that was already lagging behind as far as catching up with the curriculum is concerned. How did you approach the year 2021 with this class of grade 12 learners?
All right.
All right, we're having challenges there with Tamokob. Okay, I'll come back to him in a moment. Let's go then and look at the Eastern Cape education. Eastern Cape education dropped from 76.5% to 68.1% as far as the pass rate is concerned. Vuyiseka, what was, I suppose, key as part of the challenges in that province, and how did you mitigate?
Thank you very much, Thabo, and good evening to all the viewers at home. Yes, we did have a drop last year in terms of our output and in terms of our grade 12s. And majorly the issue, Thabo, was a teacher-learner contact. As you'd understand, that we had almost like 3 to 4 months last year wherein we were having schools closed. And as the Eastern Cape Department of Education, we then tried an alternative of rolling out an ICT for the grade 12s, which we think that had we not done that, the results would have been disastrous. And we confirm today that at least with the work that was done last year and the work that is being done by teachers, district directors, and also the officials of the department, we are not in a bad space. But the known time that is needed for any learner to progress qualitatively and also to be known that such a learner is ready for the market is a bit of a challenge, is a bit of a worry, but not that we have given up, because reality and the fact of the matter is we're in a period that is designed by COVID-19, but the plans of the department are afoot. And I can tell you, Thabo, that even though we dropped in terms of percentage, but in terms of bachelor pass, we're amongst the provinces that were announced as number 3, because the focus of the department is not only to say we're at 75% and then therefore we're at position number 3, but consistently the MEC speaks about qualitative analysis of results, which means how many bachelor pass would you have produced as the Eastern Cape and how many national certificate, because at the end of the day we need to be a province that produce results that which will take a learner to tertiary institutions, not to just have a person with a grade 12 certificate that can take him or her anywhere. So we do have such a focus, and we do understand that the slippery place that we're in last year gave us an opportunity to learn and gave us experiences. And indeed, this year we believe that with the work that we've done, there's more that we can expect. And with the analysis that is to be done by the MEC just before the start of the final examination of the trial, we will be able to know that at least where we are. But we do have hope that the plans, the work, and the sacrifices that has been done by our teachers and also our officials in the department is going to yield positive results for the people of the province.
Now, you speak of the ITC intervention. You're saying that's the type of intervention that assisted you. Now, there are allegations of corruption as far as that particular contract is concerned, that you've spent 538 million rands to get those tablets. Currently, you are battling to get those tablets back, but also there is no evidence that any learner actually benefited from having those tablets, with a court decision that also cut their access to the data?
No. Maybe we must make this clarity, Thabo. First and foremost, there is no truth in the saying that there is no gain that learners got last year in terms of the ICT rollout, because in the gadgets that they were in possession of, they were able to access information that which they needed to prepare for their examination, and they were able to interact with their own teachers anytime, anywhere. And thirdly, they were able to know what could be the outlook of the papers that they were to write. That's the first point. The second point, Thabo, the pace of the court process has never been defined by the one that is responding. It has always been about the court and its own processes, and the department has always been ready to represent itself in the court of law. And also, the retrieval of those tablets, it was not to take them back to the department, but it was to take them back to the schools. And at least the number that we got is a number that which we can say, yes, we are able to say that the service, in terms of the money that was used, we can't really throw the water out with the kids, but we can say, as we are to do the same thing this year, before maybe they can write the final examination or they finish final examination, those that are in possession of the tablets of the department will be asked to return them back. So it is a bit perplexing for any conclusive decision or any conclusive view.
But how many tablets have you got back? How many of those tablets that were given up did you get back that you were able to give to other learners now?
For an example, Thabo, 60% of them is back. And the ones that are not back, some of them, they are raising the issue of them being broken, and others, they're raising the issue of them not having the chargers, and others saying that they've been stolen. But those that are saying that they're stolen, we say that go and open a case. The last point, Thabo, that perhaps I must raise with you is that we can't be a country that says that we're moving to fourth industrial revolution, but when it comes to learning, we think that it is also not going to be possible that we must roll out ICT, because if it's true by scientists that we're in a period of pandemics, we've entered the period of pandemics, it therefore tells you that teaching and learning is not going to be only dependent on the teacher and the learner conduct in a class. So there are other means that each and every province or each and every country must be able to think of, and part of those is the ICT, because even us today, you and me, were unable to be in a studio at a go, because we must do the social distancing and everything else, but interviews must continue. So the point is, the rollout of the ICT can't really be thrown out by the department on the basis of few challenges that we are faced with.
If you're not going to be able to guarantee those tablets coming back, 40% of them having spent such a huge amount of money, with 1,500 of your schools having been reported not having hygienic and safe sanitation, that is a little bit of a challenge. But Vuyiseka, we'll come back to it and address it in a moment. Let's take a break. What are your views tonight? 072-110-5584. If you want to directly engage with the head of departments or the MEC, you can, of course, give us a shout on that number as well, and we'll put you on. In Focus continues in a moment. Welcome back. You're live with us tonight on In Focus, and of course we're in conversation with Bonagele Majuba, the MEC for Education in Mpumalanga, Stefina Samaswe Musweo Mokhoba, as well as Vuyiseka Mboxela, as well as Hendrik Makeneta, who is of course an education activist with us. We are of course trying to make that connection with Sam. We'll try and get him on as soon as he is available. But MEC Majuba, let me come to you. There are allegations of 5 principals having been displaced from their schools in the past year as a result of union violence, threats and intimidation. 2 principals slipping into a depression, being admitted to hospital for psychiatric evaluation. Question is, how are you addressing these issues, and how have these issues affected or disrupted learning already in a year where learners have lost 50% of learning time?
Good evening, Thabo, and good evening to your viewers, all my colleagues in the studio today. Well, it is true that we are facing challenges in terms of challenges that are brought about by COVID-19. And we try our level best to navigate through those challenges. And allegations concerning displacing of principals by teachers, those things do happen from time to time within the department. But we, at all material times, make sure that we use our labor section to go into that space and make sure that any allegation are investigated in a fair manner, as well as to make sure that if the allegations are found to be true, a fair process will have to be followed. But if allegations are found to be fabricated, we can be able to come up with ways and means of stabilizing the school and talk to communities and talk to educators such that we must bring the school back to normality. What I can say that those schools which are facing that kind of a situation, we are sending professional people to go in there. As of now, I'm quite sure that our schools in the province, the majority of them are stable. And even in those schools where there are such challenges, we make sure that we intervene instantly together with school governing bodies and influential leaders in the communities in making sure that even if those things are there, but stability and tuition in school would have to continue.
MEC, I want you to speak in specific terms. As I've mentioned to you, 5 principals that are saying they've been displaced. Have you investigated those particular allegations of intimidation? What have you found? Can you confirm that there were indeed cases of intimidation? And then what action did you take?
Tabo, it would have been good if you would have told me firstly about the names of those schools. But generally, what I can tell you is any allegation that come to our table, we make sure that instantly we investigate them, firstly, because you have to deal with facts so as we can be able to bring stability to the school and make sure that even the names of those principals are cleared. And I can say that all instances of allegation happening in the province, firstly, they are investigated by labor officers who are dispatched to go to those schools and come up with investigations. And in case they escalate at some stage, they are escalated to the head office and ultimately to my office as the MC, where I intervene in case I feel that I have to intervene. That is why I say those issues, they happen from time to time. Where there are people interacting, there will always be challenges of people differing there and there. And all that we're doing is to make sure that we come up with conflict resolution mechanisms of making sure that we deal with those issues.
All right, let's bring this a little bit closer than MEC. Let's talk about the neglect at Masinagane Special School. Infrastructure challenges which have been brought to your attention, and this has been escalated to the South African Human Rights Commission, that there are close to 120-something learners there that have not been at school since April 2020 because of the dilapidated infrastructure. There are no boarding facilities, they sleep in classroom, there are no ablution facilities, and the charge is that the MEC is turning a blind eye to this particular matter. Have you addressed it, MEC?
Well, I've been in that school 2 times since those allegations were brought forth. And I went there, I sat the whole day with the leadership of the school, the SGB, and officials of the department. We looked at all the issues which are raised. I should think people should also begin to talk about how it came about that we had to have that kind of a school. But we came to the space as the department And as of now, we made sure that the people were complaining about facilities for showering of those learners. And we made sure that showers were brought in to the school so as children can be able to have those bathrooms. And they were complaining about sanitation. We also came forth and assisted to make sure that sanitation is also addressed. But we're in the process of turning a school next to Masnakane, and that school we're going to turn it and make it a boarding facility. Already, the infrastructure section in the department is working on all the necessary designs which are to be followed so as we can be able to improve what is happening in the school.
So let's stay there a little bit. So 154 learners, are they now all attending? Because only 31 was reported to be attending at the time.
Well, because of COVID challenges and other challenges that are there, parents are the ones who are slowly bringing back the children. That's the information I was told when I went there this time around. But in terms of the facility, it's quite improved compared to the time when the human rights came and raised those concerns. We went there, were at all material times there in making sure that, first of all, those are children with special needs. And we also are doing our level best to make sure that the welfare of those children is taken good care of.
Yeah, that's precisely why I'm asking, because if they are at home, who's taking care of them, and is the department certain that their needs are being well taken care of psychologically as they are at home without the support that they would get when they are in the school?
Actually, that was also a concern, because when I came there, I asked the same question there, and the principal and the people there, they were concerned that there is a reluctance by parents to bring children to the institution because of the anxiety of what is taking place because of COVID-19 that we are facing.
All right, MEC there, Majuba in Mpumalanga, of course, outlining some of the challenges that they are dealing with there. Ms. Stephanie, good evening, and thank you very much for your time, and also Stephanie, I beg your pardon, joining us tonight here on In Focus. Let's immediately get to some of the issues that are particularly a hardship for the Northwest Province. There are a number of schools with some challenges. Let's start with the Tirelong Secondary School with no water and electricity. Surely that is a big challenge, in particularly catching up with learning and ensuring that there is learning that is taking place generally in that school. How are you addressing that issue?
Thank you, Thabo, and good evening to the viewers. The issue of Tirelong Secondary School in terms of shortage of water is being attended to. Indeed, we have such a problem regarding water availability, and the department is drilling some boreholes in areas where we cannot access municipal supply of water. So Tirelong is one of those schools that we are prioritizing as the department. In the interim, where we do not have that supply of water, adequate supply of water, we do work with municipalities, local municipalities, for water tankering. So Tirelong is one of those schools where we are tankering, and we are also looking into the issue of drilling a borehole for continuous supply of water.
Yeah. Any estimation as to when that particular process would be complete and that school be able to have the necessary sanitation and ablution facilities?
Well, it is one of the schools that are prioritized for this financial year in terms of adequate water supply as well as ablution facilities.
All right, we'll come back and touch on a number of other schools that have been highlighted as a challenge there in the Northwest. You want to put questions forward to our panel tonight, send us a WhatsApp, 072-110-5584. Or otherwise, you can just write your question and we will put it forward to them and you can be a part of this conversation. We're back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're live tonight on In Focus on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405, with 50% of learning time alone lost during this time of the pandemic and mounting challenges in schools that have got to do with infrastructure, budget constraints. We're asking representatives tonight, what are they doing to recover learning time, but also to address these deficiencies within the system. Bonagele Majuba, the MEC for Education in Mpumalanga, with us tonight. We also have Ms. Stefina Samaswe, Superintendent General HOD at the Northwest Department of Education. We've got now Moswe Sam Makobo, Chief Director for the District Management and Institutional Development and Support in the Free State. And we also have Vuiseka Mbokela from the Eastern Cape Education. And Hendrik Makeneta will, of course, come into this conversation as well as an education activist. Before we get back to some of the other issues, let me bring you in here, Dr. Mokhobo, and let's talk about some of the challenges in the Free State. Yes, one of the leading provinces as far as the pass rate is concerned. However, the president, in his address earlier on in the year, also cited the Free State as one of those schools with this big challenge of peat latrines. In Kwakwa alone, 50 schools there with peat latrines, unable to deal with this issue of sanitation. What are the challenges?
Good evening, Mr. Mdruli and the listeners at home, and our apologies that we struggled to connect. Yes, we are dealing with all those challenges of the peat latrines. As the Free State Province, we do have got a plan to attend to all the identified challenges with regard to those peat latrines in Kwakwa, and hopefully in the new financial year we will be finalizing all of those outstanding peat latrines. However, it must be indicated that there is no school in Kwakwa or in the Free State that does not have the effective and functional toilets or ablution facilities. All our schools in the province do have got the functioning ablution facilities. We have provided a temporary sanitation facilities to those schools where there are challenges.
By functional, what do you actually mean? Because there are reports of schools that on paper they are said to have new schools or new flushing toilets, but there is no water running in those schools. So would you say that is classified as functional?
Look, Mr. Mdruli, what we experience in some of the areas that we know, in particular Thabo Mofutanyana and some areas in Lejwe-Leputswa, the challenge is with regard to the water supply to the toilets by the municipality. And with us, as I say, they are functional. We have provided almost every facility, and those toilets are functioning. It's an issue of that connection from the municipality water supply. However, in some areas, we have also provided water tanks, plus or minus 87 water tanks that we have provided to schools where there are challenges of water supply from the local municipalities in order for us to get the toilets functioning.
Now, you of course had this 88.1% pass rate coming into the year. You planned on having Saturday classes for grade 12 learners. How did that process proceed?
Well, Mr. Mdruli, we started the year very well in 2021. We learned from the challenges that were posed by COVID-19 in 2020. That is why, through the leadership of the MEC and the HOD, we then came up with about 10 focus areas And one of them was the focus area on curriculum provisioning, improving learner performance. And we then engaged with all our stakeholders, where we started with the extra classes on Saturdays and some instances Sundays. We also extended the teaching day in the majority of our secondary schools. Also with the holiday classes, we continued with the holiday classes. And I must indicate that with the current cohort of 2021, the grade 12 class of 2021, we started our preparations in 2020. So it is not a new thing. In 2020, we had already started preparing our grade 12 class of 2021. So we'll continue with all our interventions for those holiday classes, the weekend classes, as well as the extended hour programs that we have initiated with all our schools.
All right, Hendrik, let's bring you in here. I mean, if you look at what is currently going on and what has been exposed by the pandemic, and certainly being raised by the various unions when they speak to Parliament, is that the pandemic has exposed some of the inequalities that exist within our education system. And you can put a review of 3 years as far as the annual performance plan, but ultimately you're dealing with schools with different challenges. So there are schools that have fully opened and the learners are able to go to school, but there are schools still today who can't, because of overcrowding, have all the learners back at school. So they are either learning once a week, if that is possible, or once every 2 weeks, if that is possible. There are others who probably have an option of just going to school in the morning and others going to school in the afternoon. It's just a cocktail of varying variables that we are dealing with. Is this conducive for learning? One, but is it also conducive for quality education?
Well, Thabo, certainly not. The current situation as it stands is not conducive for learning and teaching. You are right when you say that there are schools which are already back on a full-time capacity. But of course, there are those schools which still follow the rotational timetable. And mainly, these are schools that are found in townships as well as in some of the rural areas, in poor communities. That is where the learners are the hardest hit, because overcrowding is still a challenge. And indeed, you are correct when you say COVID-19 caught government unprepared, in a sense that it was able to expose the gaps that exist between the rich schools in suburbs as well as those poor schools in poor communities as well as townships. And Thabo, I must indicate that learning and teaching has been severely disrupted, and it will take a number of years before we can get back to the on track where we should be. If you look at the annual teaching plan, last year already we all agree, the spokesperson, in fact, Vuiseka has already indicated that we had term 2 of 2020 wherein learners were not at school. And this was exacerbated by 2021 as well, with the continuation of the rotational timetable, which up to now, as we are now about to close the third term of the year 2021, the majority of schools in townships are still following the rotational timetable. And I think that the government needs to find a way to move with the necessary speed, because if something drastic is not done to ensure that the whole issue of overcrowding is addressed, it means we may still continue to sit with this problem of learners who sit at home and they come once or twice a week, and they in the process they fall behind, and that is not only that is not the only problem, Thabo. The other problem is that we are now facing the issue of dropout rates. There are learners who are now dropping out of school, as a result of this particular timetable, because by the time they go back to the school, some of them have already forgotten what was taught in the previous lesson. And for us, that is a cause for great concern, because for too long, we have called on government to address the issue of dropout rates. But I want to stress the point that we are certainly aware that government alone may not be able to resolve all of these challenges that we face as society in our schools. We are facing a challenge where the private sector is not fully coming on board. We want to call upon the private sector as well to come on board to ensure that these whole issues of pit toilets, additional classrooms that are required in our schools are also addressed. We must salute President Ramaphosa for taking that safe initiative to make sure that the issue of pit toilets is resolved. We can safely say that we've moved from point A to point B in relation to addressing pit toilets, and we must applaud government for that. But of course, it's not enough. We know that the backlog is still there, but what is encouraging is that a new deadline has now been set, wherein government will have to ensure that by 2023, the whole issue of pit toilets shall be addressed. But at the same time, we must call upon also community members to ensure that they too are able to come on board in safeguarding some of our schools. We know that recently in July, when we saw the unrest in KZN as well as in Gauteng, there are schools which were banned by members of the community. And I think that schools belong to members of the community, and it is their duty to ensure that these schools are protected at all times.
All right, we'll continue in a moment with this conversation. I'm also interested to hear what the provinces are doing, particularly with that dropout rate. Yeah, we're saying 80% pass, but of course, a large percentage of the learners who started do not actually finish. You're talking here close to 40% of them that drop out. So there's a huge number that gets lost in the system. What are we doing to get those back? We'll speak to the provinces on that question, and we'll take your calls tonight and direct questions for our panel. 072-110-5584. If you want to go on live, let us know there on WhatsApp, or otherwise put your question there, and we'll certainly put it forward to the panel tonight. Stay with us. In Focus continues in a moment. Right, we're looking at the recovery post the pandemic, or of course, the pandemic is still with us, with the possibility of a fourth wave. But what are the plans to ensure that grade 12 learners do catch up on 50% of the lost time of learning? The Free State, Mpumalanga, the Northwest Province, as well as the Eastern Cape, represented tonight by the various members on the panel. We also have, of course, our viewers coming in tonight into this conversation. Malusi is joining us on the line in KwaZulu-Natal with a question. Good evening, Malusi, and thank you very much for your time. What is your question tonight?
Good evening. Hi, Thabo. So my question for the panel, I just wanted to find out, does the educational department have programs that assist the SGBs in developing committees within the community when it comes to looking after the schools and their new infrastructure? Reason is, government rolls out these new distant learning initiatives and tablets, but the same schools are looted. Some of these criminals come from our community, so people must not feign ignorance. I mean, at the end of the day, it's our children that are put at a disadvantage, hurting our future leaders. So we have a responsibility. So I just wanted to find out if there are such programs that the educational department has.
Right. Malusi, I appreciate your question. Thank you very much for coming through. Good question there. Vuiseka, let's put that question to yourself as well, particularly having this challenge with the tablets. Are there programs in place to empower SGBs that they can go to communities and make sure that the communities look after this infrastructure? You're saying only 40% of the tablets were recovered. The children are saying some of them were stolen, some of them were losing chargers, some of them are broken. How are you ensuring that this infrastructure is protected? All right, Visaka, please unmute for us. I think you're muted there.
Thank you very much, Thabo. Apologies for that. Let's give this indication. One, SGBs were elected in this year, taking their term from the previous ones, and thereafter in the Eastern Cape they were all inducted on their own responsibilities, and thereafter they were also having a task of electing what we call district education forums, which are structures that which we use as a collaboration kind of work that we do in terms of them knowing what is the responsibility at school and also what is needed as a shared responsibility in that said particular district. And the other component that we use, which is very active in the department, it's stakeholders engagement, because we're often asserting that education is a societal issue. It cannot be just about those that are in the sector, but also other sectors which in the context of our own province include the religious sector, include the traditional leaders, include social activities, activists, and also include NGOs. And maybe the other part that I can also raise in relation to the issue of tablets is that the tablets are continuously being returned back by learners, but the pace at which they are in is not the one that we desired. But the 60% that we have now is able to then be dispersed across the schools where they have been returned, and we can be able to say they are going to be able to use them, because they were just for a year, that they were just for months, not even a year, a few months that they were in possession of them. And when the issue of the court would have been settled, which we think and we are convinced beyond reasonable doubt that it is going to be settled in a positive manner, it will then give us another opportunity to roll out ICT in the province. Because reality, our own focus is on transformation, is on transforming the education, and it cannot be that we can transform it in an Asian manner. We can't rely on books when we know that from time to time, when there are quarrels in communities, people would decide to go and ban a school. So if they ban a school, you would then not have textbook at all. So those are some of the things that we put into the table when we think of what can we do to transform the education. And also we do that in collaboration with the stakeholders and also with the SGPs. We have quarterly meetings, and we also have an advisory council, which also plays a role in assisting the department in thinking on what could be the way forward in making sure that the assets that we have, the schools that we have, the furniture in schools, the tablets that we have, they are remaining an asset of government, and they are treated with great respect and great care.
MEC Majuba, let's talk to the issue of the students who have dropped out in the course of the year because of of course, the variety of issues being raised, including the fact that we are using this generic, actually not a hybrid system, where there is face-to-face learning, there's online learning or rotational calendars, and they're just not getting to grasp with the work that they need to do.
This is true. That's a challenge, and it's exacerbated by this COVID-19 because there's a lot of anxiety amongst the learners and also amongst the parents themselves. And as a result of that, many learners drop out. And also socio-economic issues which are caused by this COVID-19. People got retrenched from work, and parents who are supposed to provide for the children, who are supposed to transport them to schools, are now unemployed as a result of those socio-economic conditions. The dropout is escalating. And we are trying our level best as we communicate with school governing bodies who are linking us with communities, that principals and educators in schools must trace those children and begin to check what are the actual reasons that caused these children to drop out. And if it is possible, we can be able to say that we need to persuade them further that they must hold on and come to school, because the only way that can be able to liberate working class children from poverty is education. So even if we are facing difficulties, we need to navigate through those difficulties and make sure that we encourage children to stick and remain at school, so as we can be able to develop our country.
Right, we got Xolisile in the Free State for the Chief Director tonight. And Tata Mokhoba, here's a question from Xolisile. Xolisile, good evening. Thank you for your time. Xolisile?
Good evening, Zate. How are you?
I'm
good
well,
evening,
thank you very much. Go ahead, the Chief Director is listening.
My question is directed to Tata Mokhoba from the Free State. We here in Foresburg, I'm from Foresburg, we have one high school. It is overcrowded, that high school, with little water that can be used for flushing. Then we have an overcrowded classes here. We have been promised the second high school. My question is that when are we going to get that high school? That high school, it has been said it will alleviate the problem that we have here. So that is the question I wanted to know.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much, Xolisile. Got the question. Tata Mokhoba, Foresburg, only one high school, overcrowding, big issue there. When are they getting a second high school?
No, thank you very much, Tabo. We are aware of the challenge in Foresburg, and that is why, to mitigate against that, we are providing mobile classes to address the issue of overcrowding. Indeed, part of the infrastructure plan is to address all those issues, and the issue of Foresburg High School, as the colleagues in infrastructure went around the district during the infrastructure roadshow, they have also indicated that it is part of the plan, and we will definitely come back or go back to the community of Foresburg to indicate.
Xolisile is not looking for that answer, Chief Director. He's not looking for an answer that says part of the plan. He's saying, when are they getting a second high school? Is that a difficult thing to answer, to say, here's the plan, we are planning to put that high school up in the next 12 months, or 6 months, or 3 months? But give me your part of the plan.
Yeah, but I think that we will agree that it is part of the plan, and as I indicated, you also rely on the service providers who have been appointed to finalize the project that is in place, the project that has started, and that is why I'm indicating that we are addressing all those challenges, and we will definitely go back to them and give a proper feedback. Meantime, mobile classes have been provided to mitigate against the issue of overcrowding.
So, I mean, I take it that you're saying you don't have proper feedback for him right now.
For now, yes, as I indicated, we will definitely go back and indicate the final date of the secondary school in Foresburg.
All right. Mr. Fina, let's talk also overcrowding in the Northwest province and be precise. Promosa Secondary School, that building, you overspent, it seems, on a guard house, yet learners are squeezed into a classroom. What's happening?
Thank you, Tabo, for the question. The issue of overcrowding in Promosa and other schools is being addressed. We have so far procured additional mobile classrooms and delivered in our schools to offset the overcrowding. And as for the guard house, that is a matter that we are investigating.
All right. I appreciate you all for coming through tonight. Thank you very much. MEC Bonagele Majuba, Stefina Samaswe, Musweu Makoba, Wisega Mbotlela, as well as Hendrik Mankenet. And thank you for your engagement tonight here on In Focus in dealing with the challenges that are facing our education system. In the pandemic, we also have corruption to deal with. We also have a lack of ablution facilities, and we also have infighting amongst teachers and principals. And hopefully, there are solutions that are being looked at to address those situations.